This is a chat with Garry Green, and the people that will appreciate this podcast is people that are struggling to find staff or staff members that have finding there's inefficiencies in their business, and it's really frustrating. They're doing unnecessary repetitive tasks. Because essentially what they do is they train a bot to replicate certain tasks within a business so that it's more efficient, consistent, and then the staff members are able to do more creative and fun things within the business. And I've never really come across something like that in New Zealand. I've heard of EasyBots, and they're more of the messenger campaign where they're like, how do you communicate with either inbound correspondence or either clients or potential clients. But in terms of actually training a specific model to solve a specific problem, and I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are struggling to find great talent, or people within organizations that are frustrated with the way things are done. So this is sort of the integration between technology and people, and I'd love to hear what you think. So let's kick into it. Just to set the scene, and you've probably done the odd sales pitch over your time, but just to get an idea of sort of what you guys do, so people sort of get a feel for who the person is.
Yeah.
So what is it that you do, Garry?
So basically, I've got a company, Quanton, that's been going for 7 years, and what we do is we help businesses, basically be more productive. Because again, a lot of people have challenges getting talent, but also not just be productive, but leverage technology and do it the right way. Because leveraging technology is about a combination of people, their processes, the data, and how you structure it all together. And so there's no silver bullets with technology. You've got to invest in the kind of people side. So we just help people on that journey, where they are now, where they need to be in the future, and how they combine that mix. And obviously some of the stuff we're renowned for is around in the automation space, where we've been able to deliver really rapid gains to businesses so that they can address shortfalls without where they can't get staff or need to be more productive.
I'm just curious because I've been experimenting with the idea of like, how do you sell an intangible thing?
Good question.
You know what I mean? Because you've done it well, 30 staff members, and you're out there. You don't look like you're starving. So how do you sell the intangible?
I think it's interesting because it's end of the day, people buy from people, and every business that we deal with, or organisation that might be in government or not for profit, they've got goals to achieve, or they're trying to achieve stuff. And if it's all easy, it'd all be done. You wouldn't need to employ people. But there's always challenges and things you hit. So it's it's really simple when I engage with people. It's why do you want to work with us? What do you need from us? Why are you looking at automation? Why are you looking at changing what you do? And that kind of comes down to then that there's probably three things they're trying to drive. It might be stakeholder or shareholder value in the business. So around productivity, efficiency. It may be around staff engagement. How do we attract staff, retain staff, give them more meaningful work? Or it may be around customers. How do we attract more customers? How do we retain customers? How do we give them better experience? And we find that those three areas are, it's some of them or all of them. Generally, it's all of them. And then we've kind of built our business around how we help you in those three areas, and we call it the triple win. Because if you can help in all those three areas, it's a massive boon for our organisation. And it's just going in with an open mind, and it's it's listening as well. It's not going in with a sales pitch, it's understanding, and it's kind of being very, not trying to be male, and actually listening.
Trying to be male.
And not solutioneering.
Yeah, what you should do. Oh, as soon as that comes out,
Yeah.
Have you ever had a lecture? Someone say you vocalize a problem. Hey, I'm eating too much. This is me just projecting. I'm eating too much. I'm unhealthy, and then someone's like, you should eat more, eat less, eat healthier, and just exercise. Why aren't you doing it? And what comes up?
And that's interesting because it's the end of the day. There's no benefit in lecturing, is there? Because at the end of the day, if people want to do stuff, they've got to want to do it, and they've got to make the decision, get to that decision point, and then they're going to do it. If someone else tells you what you should be doing, and that's like when you look at technology space, that so many people say, oh, there's silver bullets. I put this technology in and it'll magically just happen. Well, if you want silver bullets, you want to watch werewolf films, really. But in reality, it's people that make the change, make the difference. So you've got to get buy-in. People have got to believe in what you're doing and what the benefit is to them. So we kind of very much from a start of taking a transformational view on this, that people have got to understand why you're doing something. So there's got to be a motivation, there's got to be a burning platform as such, and it may be that that's an external stimulus or internal. The pandemic was a massive stimulus for people to go to, remote working and video conferencing. Video conferencing technology has been around for years, and we could have all been using it 10, 20 years ago. I mean, the infrastructure needed to catch up around that, but it was all doable. But we didn't make the leap to that. Now we've made the leap, people are struggling to get people back in the office and so on. So it's that, but you need a burning platform, or you need some reason to move people from the status quo. And so for your example, you're going, well, I love food as well. I'm sure you do, and the odd drink. But if you've got to change your lifestyle habit, it's often something happens that makes you do that, or you need that incentive around that.
Yeah, because one of the things you talked about, I feel, was transformation. And I find naturally, it doesn't matter who you are, there is some level of resistance to change.
Yeah.
And I've been exploring with the idea of, have you ever heard of motivational interviewing?
No.
It's like the dark arts of psychology.
Okay.
So it's the thing they used to use with addicts to help them make changes in their lives. And all it is a line of questioning that leads to a positive outcome for the client. So it's not you should, it's asking questions that unravel the pain and give them confidence that they can pursue the solution. And I find that's just great sales.
Yeah.
So what have you found, because very few companies in your industry get to your size, like to scale, to market and to get in a level of volume of new business. It's quite hard. And they usually use Google AdWords, referrals, or their acquisitions. Yeah. How have you found has been the most effective way your company has grown?
Acquisition.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
It's interesting because my background's not in sales at all. And when I came to New Zealand, I had no intention of starting a business. I was just contracting, running transformation programs. And it's just I came across an opportunity to start a business. And then you have to learn all these other skills. Or you've got some of the skills that are just called something else you didn't realise you had. Because again, when everyone's a salesperson in an organisation, you don't realise you're a salesperson when you go for a job, because you're selling yourself with your CV and what the skill sets are. When you kind of come up with ideas, you're selling an idea of why you should do something. So it's interesting. I've had to study and learn a lot, but also met some great people in the sales side. And with our suppliers, we've seen some of the techniques they use that are effective and what isn't, as well as our customers, how they engage. And it's interesting because it's we very much look at direct sales, how we engage, and it's because for some of the services we offer, you need to understand in a customer what the problems are, what the opportunities are as well. Because if there's a problem, there's an opportunity, and it's that, like you say, it's that putting a positive thing on there, because you're going that often if the more problems there are, the bigger the opportunity there are to make change and actually do better. So from a direct sales engagement, you need to what we do, you need to understand what the problems, what the opportunities are, engage with people, build that trust, and then with this set of things you're trying to do, it's there's a roadmap or there's a way of doing this. You can show how it can be done. And again, we're experts in automation and operational excellence and digital transformation, but the stuff outside our skill set. So we've got a partner now. We bring in the experts, so we bring together a team best of the best. So there's a direct engagement we get, and that's the thing for us, reputation's everything. So we've built our reputation around that excellence in delivery, as well as empathy and understanding our customer and doing what is right for the customer. And that works because we get a lot of referrals from our customers, which is just absolute gold. We've also, on the digital side, we've got a great team that have been working on that and honing it over the years. And what we get there, and we use that quite effectively because it's quite a cost-effective way of broadening your reach and then bringing people in then for the human engagement to work through. And then we about 3 years ago, we bought another company that was in our space. We were approached, and the deal worked well, and we he added 30 clients overnight. So, and I guess if get the accountants in and they'll have a look at it, but they go, actually, most cost-effective strategy is acquisition to get customers. So when you look at all the effort you put in over the years to land customers, to you buy a company and you've got a customer base.
Yeah.
So, but no one on their own is ideal. You need a combination of them. And we've also got through our partner networks, that it's a two-way street. If you invest in those partner networks where you've got collaborations, you've got complementary skills or offerings, then referrals come from that as well. And that's quite powerful. We managed to grow quite a bit of business through that. We've expanded into Australia through that as well, through referrals from partners and so on.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm starting to see, because I just decided I want to talk to a whole lot of mid-sized service companies just to learn from them. And your style is quite consistent to the ones that get to that level, which is technicians focused on the betterment of the client's interest. And through that, it's just expanded, and your ability to build authentic relationships with your staff that they actually, believe in what you do. So it comes from a place of caring as well as a deliverability for the client, and then it just naturally grows from that.
Yeah.
What was the first moment, though? So you're a contractor. I can imagine you just having opportunities present themselves. You're like, okay, why don't I just do it? You know what I mean? Like, what was the first moment when you went from...
I guess for me, since I've been in New Zealand 15 years now, and loved it, because I met my wife in London. She's a Kiwi, and ever since she brought you back, no, I wanted to go to New Zealand. She wanted to stay on in London, so we got over that hump. And we set up a business initially that we had some land and we built houses. It was already subdivided, and then we bought some additional houses renovated. So I spent my first year in New Zealand basically building decks, building garages, renovating houses, and never done it before, but you just roll up your sleeves, get on with it. Some family that were skilled in that, so I learned a lot. But it gets to the point it's actually quite lonely, because you're just working on your own most of the time. So I need a bit more mental stimulation. So I ended up going down to, picked up some work in Wellington, contracting in the transformation space, running some programs, and mainly for government. So we ended up moving down there. And it was great to get experience in the New Zealand market, understand nuances and how stuff works. Did Wellington for a couple of years, then managed to land a gig up in Auckland, and in the health sector, worked there, then worked in the banking sector, then worked in the utilities. So it's great because driving change, but it's also frustrating, because my frustration was I got to a point at the end of this gig in the energy sector, and I was thinking, there's got to be a better way to do stuff, because I'm going in again to rescue a program that's been set up incorrectly. There's a vendor that's ripping the arse out of it, or not doing what the customer wants, what's best for them. Or if it's an international vendor, New Zealand's so far down the priority list. And I'm just going, and it's all taking so long, and it's costing so much. And I'm going, there's got to be a better way. And I was kind of taking some time out after finishing a gig, and I was thinking, I'm probably going to set up my own company. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to set up a company. And I happened to come across something on LinkedIn that a guy I knew in the UK had joined this company called Blue Prism. I'm going, Pat's been involved in a number of startups in technology. What did Blue Prism do? And it's robotic process automation. And it's like a light bulb moment of going, oh my goodness, this technology, it mimics, you can train it to do what people do, link systems together really rapidly. You can basically kick off transformations, you get the tactical quick wins, and then you can do a strategic approach. And I'm going, oh my goodness, I can see a use in every business and organisation I've worked in New Zealand. So I got hold of Pat and said, have you got anyone in Australia and New Zealand at the moment? Because I think I can see opportunities for you guys. He said, no, we focus on Europe and the States. We're not even looking at Australia and New Zealand. And he said, but are you interested in being a partner? I was like, okay, yeah. So, because it turns out Pat and I were at school together. So he went to the board of Blue Prism and said, we've got a guy in Australia and New Zealand that I know. He knows he can get stuff going. Let's back him. So they backed us to set up over there. And we went back to, and I worked out, luckily I did an MBA previously, so I was tapping into some of the knowledge from that. And so we set up the business plan, everything we needed. And I kind of approached a consulting company I'd worked with before and said, look, your business optimization area is a good fit with this products. So we worked together on a partnering, and we formed a company, and they, 50-50 shareholders with us to get going. So the idea was that they had a lot of government clients, so we could do that. I had commercial contacts, and it would be good cross-fertilization of bringing people in and across things. So got going, and it's learned a lot from them. They learned, they weren't really in the technology space, but learned a lot about that. And so we just formed the company, and we had a kind of a government organisation we thought we had good connections in. We worked out the business case. It stacked up phenomenally. Mm-hmm. And then we had a banking client, and it stacked up. And luckily, timing's everything on some of these things. They'd just got a C-level person to come back from working for another bank in India where they're using this technology. And she's going to the bank, why aren't we using this? And they're saying, well, we've got Garry, who used to work in the bank, who's come with this value proposition. So I met with the exec, and she said, quickest sales thing, half an hour, let's go forward. And so it's just timing, everything just aligned. So we landed one of the major banks as our launch customer. So it's like, because the focus was around getting a reference site, and we couldn't have asked for a better client. And they were going, their backlog of what they wanted to do was huge. So we had to scale really rapidly as well. Interestingly, the government organisation that we were working with, it stacked up, but their internal systems deliberately blocked it because it was seen as a threat. Because it's where businesses will look for efficiencies and productivity gains, some organisations maybe are measured differently on headcount that they have in an area, or spending a budget and not. Yes, the drivers are completely different, and risk aversity. And you were saying before about how do people, because often organisations can be set up around a business model and optimising that business model to the nth degree. So anything outside of that gets killed off or stopped because it doesn't fit with the business model. So that makes it very hard for those organisations to innovate, because basically any innovation or initiative does that is killed. And which is why you often have to use other techniques of setting stuff up on the periphery, or separate business units or separate tiger teams around it. So for us, we were very lucky in it. Timing is really important, but also having a good value proposition, and then knowing the right people, because often I call it planetary alignment. You get the right people, right places, right time. There's a finite window when you can move things forward, and then people change and stuff moves, and then it realigns in some other place. So, and we kind of went from, obviously, first major bank, then we landed in the second major bank, we landed a telco. And at the time, the technology was, the price point was very much for the enterprise clients. But the good thing about technology is that it democratizes, is that you've heard of Moore's Law, have you? An exponential. So Moore's Law, he's one of the founders of Intel, but basically he said every 18 months, basically, you can double the number of microprocessors on a chip. So basically every 18 months it doubles. So that means that your capacity, so that's why you've got an iPhone that's like a supercomputer.
Yeah.
So basically, if you took the technology back exponentially, if you had the equivalent technology in the 1980s, that computer would be the size of a football pitch and cost several $1 billion, where the technology is effectively, when you double the capability, half the price every 18 months. It's an exponential curve. The price point comes way down. So I call it democratization, because basically the price point comes down, so it's more affordable. So we started off only enterprises, then into large businesses, mediums and smalls. So the price point of kind of automation technology is come way down. The ability to use it's a lot easier, but that means that it opens up the market more of what you can do and who can do it. So, some of the models when we first started were around helping a business go from A to B. What does that transformation look like? What's the mix of technologies? You need a full program. You've got all these people. To now we've got an offering, the QBot, the Quantum Bot, where basically we've got a bot that you can rent by the hour, and basically, so we've got a generic one that we've been putting into SMEs, and we've been working with a number of SMEs over the last year to hone this, to basically go, I've got sales order processing going. Oh, I've got half a person doing that. But I can't grow because I've got no capacity. So we've put a Qbot in that basically we've trained to do that sales order processing. And then that's freed up the person to go, well, actually, I can engage and talk to clients more than be doing all the manual work. And then going, well, actually, and this is great, especially with small businesses that want to grow, because you're going, you can't get talent.
Yeah.
It costs so much. And if you go into the headhunting route, the price just goes up, and it's going up for pretty average capability where you want top talent. So the most important thing is obviously talent in businesses. How do you retain it? How do you incentivize? How do you keep people on high value work rather than mundane? How do you give them extra capacity? So we're seeing kind of growth in this kind of space around, and we've also taken the Qbot as a generic, but we've got Alex that does account stuff, tax processing and stuff. So we've got a number of accounting clients that are taking this.
You give them names, huh?
Oh, and that's the other thing about change management, because when we started, everyone's kind of going, oh, robots are going to take our jobs, automation is going to get rid of. No, we've just seen it going, there's not enough talent in this country, so it's actually giving people an alternate workforce, a digital workforce that can do the mundane. And the thing is, the mundane is getting more and more, intelligent what it can do, and it's not a case of replacement, it's a matter of augmentation. So basically, people using technology to augment what they do or make themselves more productive. So
I think that Qbot's quite interesting because I'm sort of a passionate about technology but know nothing about it, so I just hit roadblocks. Like, for example, I was experimenting with GPT-4, which has just come out last few days, and I was thinking about how to incorporate that and all the possibilities with it. And it's quite fascinating. Like that bot, like I could easily see, and it's quite cheap. You train a model that does a particular thing, and you have it confined or trained on certain information, and it gives certain output based on that.
Yeah.
What is possible with these bots that you could either make or you could partner with what's already in existence, and how do you manage that, with the technology like New Zealand? Yeah,
it's funny because we had a conversation this morning. We have a daily stand-up, and we were talking about, GPT-4 has come out, and one of the team was saying, that's great. I can take a picture of, the meat I've just got out of the freezer, and it comes up with the recipes. And it's nothing. You just wait till we get GPT-5. It'll cook it for you. And GPT-6, well, I might be out of a job because it'll do all my handiwork around the house.
Yeah.
But joking aside, some people I feel threatened by it, but I see it as a really exciting opportunity because it's actually, if you take a step back and go, I know if I'm drafting material or I'm trying to research stuff and pull together the stuff, it takes a lot of time. So for me, I'm going, okay, if I need to write an article about, subject X, I'll do all the research, but I'll come up with a kind of mind map structure. All of a sudden I can go off and use ChatGPT to come up with some suggestions around this structure, and it's not releasable, but it means that actually some of the donkey work's done. So I'm spending my time now just honing that. Say, it might be a press release, it might be a marketing piece of material or a white paper. You suddenly can use this technology in a smart way, because like you say, you've got to know how to use it in a way to point it at.
Yeah.
But, if I produce a white paper, the amount of research you've got to do, the amount of time that takes. So it's suddenly you've got a smart digital assistant that if you point it in the right direction, it brings the stuff back. You still need to check some things with it, but then you can hone it,
Yeah.
So it's, that's just one example. You can use it in coding to come up with, codes and stuff. But again, we see that it's when you design a system and do stuff, you can use chunks of it within there, but you still need to test it.
Yeah.
And prove it. It's like the use cases are,
It's insane.
Yeah, they're still being developed because everyone's going, how can I use this in my environment? How can I use it there? But it's also going because of using it, but actually knowing its strengths, but also the limitations, and that you don't.
Yeah, it still needs some level of oversight. One of the ones we experienced with that, so I hired someone that's incredible at video editing. They're very visual, so that they can bring things together that make visual sense and have seamless integration with the music, and it's beautiful, and they help grow this channel to like 200,000 followers. But I hired them to try and find best moments in podcasts, and how do you define what the best moment is?
Yeah.
And how do you teach that? And that was the main struggle, is they can frame it beautifully, but identifying the best part. And what we used ChatGPT was create the transcript, feed the transcript in, create a criteria of what a good idea is, which is like a good hook, captivating, yada, yada, yada. It'll find those best moments. It'll find the time code of that best moment, because the numbers are with the letters. And then they'll just take that out. So it took out 2 hours of work and a skill set they hadn't quite developed yet, so they could do what they really wanted to do, which is the visual architecture of the video. And there's so many things like...
Because the thing is that with us moving from a kind of physical to a digital world, it's like, so some of that exponential change I spoke about as well. If you take the camera, for example, before you'd have a digital camera, an analog camera, which got film, you've got 24 or 36 shots. So basically, you're looking around and you're really being selective in what picture you take, because it's $1 every shot for processing and then developing, and it's that. You've got a digital camera. Once you've acquired a digital camera, the incremental cost to do stuff is zero. So basically, you can take virtually unlimited number of pictures, because you're not constrained by the cost and the processing over time. So you've got this kind of, you had to manage scarcity before, to now you've got abundance. And the issue is how do you manage that abundance? Because you've got so many pictures, so much video. And that's a great example you gave of that actually, I can use this technology now to help me focus on what's really good, get rid of all the rubbish I've got in there and so on, and focus on what the best pictures are, what the best video is, what the best music is, or within text, what's the meaningful stuff around that. And we've got a project we're working with a client where we're looking at around, I guess, customer interactions, of identifying the things that are most meaningful around those and leveraging that sort of technology, because at the moment it's often done by someone listening to calls and doing this, or it's been transcribed and go in and look at this, which is quite costly. You can offshore it, but you've still got someone there, and there's error rates. Because at the end of the day, you go in there for yourself, you manage to codify what's an interesting moment. Yeah. So you've managed to say, it's then understand those definitions, but equally, you can use that thinking in others as to, if you're looking at a compliance call or a sales call, or what works, what doesn't work, and what the things is. So you suddenly go, the opportunities are just huge around this. And this is where I come back to the democratization piece, is that often if you were to try and get this level of service, the cost is so high, so it's only for the reach of a few, to suddenly you can actually make this available to all, a high level of service. So it's like robo-advice for financial services. The Financial Market Authorities license people to actually do that, and they kind of put a finger around it, because actually that democratizes the ability to offer quality advice that was only in the realms of the rich to all, because it brings down the unit cost of doing it. And there's not enough financial advisors. So you're going, actually, if you put it in that kind of space, you're going, actually, it helps businesses in that space to continue to do a high quality piece of work, but actually they can offer it to more people. And stuff. Same in insurance. So if you're looking at insurance advice, similar thing. If smart use of technology in that space tailors the advice that's required for insurance and the cover to individuals, where it can be very manual at the moment and costly, or there's a limited number of resources dealing with that.
There's a guy that comes to mind, probably one of the most advanced digital advice platforms, National Capital's Clive. And he was a paraplanner, and it took 3 hours to do a plan. And he's like, this is stupid. This could all be replaced. And so now it takes 3 seconds to do a plan, and it's all customer directed.
Yeah.
And I think about that as well. It's like Google Workspace transcribes meetings now. So I have let's say if I don't really do financial advice, I have clients that I don't really take on more. Because the finance part's boring, but the helping people achieve their goals is fun.
Yeah.
So I could be doing a meeting, transcribes the whole thing. You'd have to anonymize it or some sort of protection and privacy. That transcript gets sent to ChatGPT with a format of how a financial plan should look. It'll pump out the 2 pages that you personalize for them.
Yeah.
And then you use a plan writing software while you're with the client, which will produce all the projections and specifics, and you just done the whole meeting that normally would take you 3 hours going with them back and forth. And it's possible because I think the only value a financial advisor provides isn't the selection of the product. If you spend a week to understand money, you'll get it. Pick a right managed fund for the right time horizon with the right provider. Keep your structures simple, so if either you or your partner passes away or your business goes a little awry, have that clear and the right insurance for the right goal.
Yeah.
So the value of an advisor is understanding what a person wants and defining a journey that gives them a clear path forward and supporting them as the market corrects, supporting them not to abandon it, and ensuring that the way they're approaching their journey is correct for what they want to achieve. Yeah. Picking stocks, isn't it? You can't. You just own the market, leave it alone. Yeah. Job done. Yeah. That was my TED talk. Yeah. We'll relate it back to you. So if you had all the resources and all the money, this is still working. Some panda came up on the screen. If you had all the money, all the resources, and you went to a client, whatever client you want to pick, and you could just design everything exactly how you want, all the people would agree with you, what would you create?
Oh, and it can be any. I think it'd be in health.
Health? Okay.
Because it's around. Because I guess the problem is that with health, and there's lots of stuff in the media at the moment. I won't go into that, but basically, the most modern health systems are built. They're an ambulance at the bottom of a cliff, so it's all about treating disease too late. It's not about preventing disease or lifestyle. And so I guess it's that thing of if you could design a health system that effectively helps people live a healthier, longer, higher quality life with better outcomes, it would definitely be around that. And it's a complete quantum shift in thinking, because it's all about what you eat, your exercise, your mental health, your getting enough sleep, etc. So it's all these things, as well as there's a technology to scan you, look at your DNA and monitoring, and then also the monitors you can wear all the time. You can monitor glucose, heart rate, everything else. So it's bringing that all together so that everyone has the optimal health. It can pick up then stuff around when you're starting to feel sick, or you're on there preemptive going, oh, you need to throttle back a bit because you're actually going to fall sick in the next few days or stuff, or so on. So it's that kind of proactive approach to health that would be massive. You could put the resources into that. And I think that if you did that, that's going to be, if you did the economics and the sums, it's cheaper than treating people. And it's also but it also changes the whole dynamic of the industry, because everything's about big assets that you've put a lot of money into, rather than moving the treatment and prevention up front. And those assets, you don't need less of those big assets because less people are going to be sick or do stuff. So it's still random stuff happens, but you can deal with that. But when you look at the number of illnesses that people have that are lifestyle related.
Stress, sleep, environment.
Yeah.
Okay, well, just to speak to the tinfoil wearing hats that might be listening to this, that I can be at times. What do you think has led, because if you do the economics, that probably makes sense that if people are living healthier and we help them live healthier, it's probably going to be less burden on the government. And obviously you've got governmental clients, so you've got to be careful. But what do you think leads to the approach that we have now?
In health or?
In health, yeah. In health.
I think you've got to look at that. If you go back to in the UK in the 40s, National Health Service was set up because there's no universal access to health care that was affordable for people. So the system in the UK dates from that. New Zealand obviously dates from a period where you set up unified access to health. And again, I guess it's that it comes back to that organisations are often set up to preserve a status quo in how they operate. So you could put that, and it's also the thing of going that there should not be a monopoly of provision of services. It should be the best provider to provide those. So it's that, whether it's a state-owned, whether it's a Maori Health entity, whether it's a community health entity, or even private, use the best mix around that. Who's best placed to provide the service? So, and I don't think, I mean, obviously at the moment we've gone to one unified health organisation, which is in some ways a step forward, because having 20 separate entities before that and the overhead associated is huge. When you've got a country of 5 million people and 20 DHBs, you've got Scotland that's the same population, has got effectively one health entity. So it manages that and then devolved kind of powers regionally. So I think there's the structural stuff, but it's also the funding models. If you don't get the funding model right, you can't actually progress. So there's a lot of work, I guess, around that, of how you do that, how you can move, I guess, treatments or preventative treatment as well. Because it's around, the problem is it's funded around treating you for being sick, not putting funding in to keep you healthy.
Yeah, which is interesting, because I think about what leads to innovation in medicine, and as good-natured as individuals might be, there's some sort of financial incentive, because you need resources to do the research to find the medicine, and then who would be benefiting from the supporting of that research. There must be some sort of commercial gain.
Yeah.
So I can understand the inertia of what you're talking about. I can understand that that they wanted to provide services to people.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily. It'd be hard to be like, hey, let's research vitamin D and start flogging that out.
But it's also going that if you find a discovery, it's how you. If you take that and then put it into the existing model of delivery, is it going to make a difference? If you take something that's, like, say, revolutionary or disruptive, does it need a different delivery mechanism? Because it's like wearables. You're going, okay, everyone can monitor their health, and they've got an app around that about how the pulse is doing, how the blood pressure is doing, etc., and then you can also do glucose. But then there's underlying that data long term provides indicators of your own natural, when you're sick, when you're healthy, and other things around your lifestyle. There's a whole mining can go on there that actually then can feed back to yourself on what you need to be doing to better your life and how you can live it. And I guess it's that thing of going down to empowering people to look after their health and making everything as much available there. And it's almost like your GP should, it's GPs are trained in medicine, and a lot of work to get to that stage. Great. But again, it's almost the next level. It's almost someone that you need, because it's like your fitness, your diet, lifestyle coach, and your medical coach. It's a kind of almost like a new role that you need to combine, because you've got access to data that can help do that. I know if I go to my GP, he goes on to there, because there's so much advances in medicine. There's so much new knowledge added all the time. You cannot keep up. So, I mean, our GP is really good that if I go there, he will always then check the latest research or other stuff against what we're talking about to see if there's any other things that he's not aware of. And that's that thing of using technology to augment. So, and it's also, say, with the pandemic, that you suddenly had telehealth come to the fore. Now, the standard model before, say, for GP practices was you got a 15-minute session. That's it. So your capacity of a GP practice is limited to the number of staff GPs you've got and the working hours, where you bring in telehealth and you go, well, actually, I can remotely talk to someone. I only need to check this up. It's a 5-minute thing. You can then mix and match and do stuff to then suddenly, if you can just mix up that you have a certain proportion of 5-minute, 10-minute, 15 minutes appointments, you can virtually double the productivity of a GP practice overnight. or how I should do that, because we were facing a crisis that there weren't enough GPs being trained, a shed load retiring, so there's going to be, and recruiting. So by changing the model, all of a sudden you can avert that crisis of not enough GPs by changing the productivity and delivery mechanisms of that. So I think going back to the whole health, it's hugely complex and difficult. There's no single way to do it. There's multiple, because you've got an incumbent system. It's how you maximise the benefit from that system, because you can't just rip it all up and start again.
Yeah, that's a particular talent. The fact you're largely working with these large conglomerates, you have some talent of patience or influence that leads to you being able to do this. Because I think about the story of doctors where this doctor told people that given their habits, they're going to die very soon. And he's like, if you don't make changes, you're stuffed. And 10% of them changed. And you've talked about transformation and change and these inertia of these large groups. How do you encourage change? How do you come in and not some oracle of truth, but how do you lead to positive steps for them?
I think in any transformation change, there's, or even lifestyle change, there's people that will, evangelists that will, I get it, I want to do it. And you need to tap into that energy because they then convert people. You then got the kind of early adopters that will go, they'll stand back saying, I can see benefit now, I can see a thing, jump on board. And then you've got the kind of late adopters that are going, I'll wait till everyone else has done it and then I'll reluctantly do it. And then you got the kind of Luddites of go that, the only reason I don't use a dial phone is because they don't make them anymore. So you got a range of people that are in there, and it's understanding there's kind of proportions of, that you'll get of 10%, 30, whatever, around that. And it's just understanding some people will never change, they just won't. Some people will really do it more, some will. And it's that kind of understanding those, it's almost like personas for marketing. You've got similar personas in change of who will and who won't. Yeah. And so we very much, when we're working with organisations, we look for the area that's going to be the evangelists or early adopters. And within there, you need someone in the business that's an evangelist because they convert people, get them on side. It's like, me standing there and telling them, you've got to change and this is why, carries no weight. But if you've got someone in the business that's going, it's, you've got to do it and this is why, and it's made my job so much easier, and they're going, it's made Mary's job easier. It'll make my job easier if I can do that. So it's part of building that change into there. And it's interesting, it was actually in the health sector that we, one of our earliest clients that we went in and we had a really innovative chief information officer down there that saw how automation could help, because they've got a shed loads of systems that don't talk. If they don't need any more systems, they need to actually make everything communicate and do stuff. And we had basically that doctors would refer people to the hospital and would do it electronically, but it was coming into an admin centre that then was taking this electronic referral and then swivel chairing it and going into the patient management system in the hospital, putting them in there and then going into a booking system. And then it had to go, if it was oncology, it was a certain format had to go. If it's cardio, different format. If it's orthopedic, different format, and so on. So they were then manually transferring details from an electronic referral you think would be seamless all the way through, and start. And then the stuff's coming back, and they're going, I now need to reverse engineer and go back the other way, and then go back to tell them what's happening. And obviously people go, this is ludicrous. So we're going, yeah, you're right. So we ended up kind of creating a bot that would basically take those electronic referrals, understand which department they refer for, and then they'd be referred into there. We get the booking. It would then go back and actually go back and tell them. And actually, this is this. I think it would then print a letter. Then someone had to manually send rather than send email. It could email the patient if I had an email, but so it swept this up. And of course, if you got a booking for oncology, it's pretty important. You need that pretty rapidly. You don't want anything to fall through the gaps. And equally with cardio as well, you don't want any delays or stuff. So the great thing was bots went in and they swept up this, made it faster, 100% accurate, nothing would fall through the gaps. And because, the great thing was we worked with part of the organisation that were, we can see it need improvement, but also we had some skeptics and they go, oh, what if the bot does it wrong? What if the bot misses something? So we said, these are really valid points. How are we going to prove that the bot does this correctly? So we built another bot to check the bot to make sure that nothing was falling through. So then we created a system that basically was everything would go through. If it didn't, it was an exception that would actually go to a named person that had to then handle it. We also had monitoring that then picked up some anomalies in their system that they weren't aware of doing out of hours, because this was running 24/7, and at certain hours of the night the system was doing some wacky stuff that we detected that they didn't know about, that then they dealt with. So that the person that raised all these valid concerns and about the risk of the bot going rogue, which you won't, and not following a process, if we missed anything and stuff, there we go. We came to the end of the pilot and said, okay, if you're still concerned about the bot, we're happy, we'll take it out, you stay with the manual process. And they go, no, I don't want to be doing this at all. And so that person's like, wasn't necessarily an evangelist to start with, a bit of a skeptic, but just converted overnight, was the biggest advocate of how automation could drive massive improvements in the health sector and, in certain areas, and then identifying other opportunities and helping drive that. Because it's that thing for use, in that environment, they were used to, no, this is the way we do it and always do it. And you go, yeah, but it's not the best use of people's time to do that, because there's certain anomalies come at you and, well, we need to speak to a patient, we need to drive that, we need to do this. So
I think there's a few things, like I don't come across large corporations too often, but if I put myself in that situation, I'm like, okay, we've got this inertia and these legacy technologies and trying to communicate. So I can see how you're integrating these technologies with the bot would have a mass appeal. And then I think about it would be hard to promote change. And then you're thinking of the human element of how within the organization they can promote change. Because in leadership, I find no one cares what I have to say. They care about the person that's in their position that they respect or admire, especially in sales. So I'll say the same thing, but instead I'll ask, hey, do you agree with this to the person? And ask that person to communicate it to the other person. So then it lands as opposed to from me. And then the other thing is, if I'm in this large corporate, I might not always feel like my concerns are listened to and acknowledged. So you've had the skeptic that's expressed their concerns where you've actually made tangible implementations to their concern. So I can really see the appeal.
Yeah. And I think it's a wider issue on organisations that people often underplay the value of culture. Culture's huge. It really makes a difference, and it's if whether it's small, medium, or large business, because it's what's the culture you're in, and do you feel safe? Do you feel trusted? Are you listened to? Because it's all these kind of factors that actually, are you happy in work or not, that drive people. Salary is important because everyone's got to pay a mortgage, but it's normally the other factors that are the tipping point for people. So it's that thing of building a high trust environment, because interesting thing is we've got 80 plus customers, so we see a range of cultures as well as at different sizes and what the fields are. And I won't name the names, but it's if there's a low trust culture, it ends up that people are really, really busy because they're attending so many meetings, and these meetings are really big because no one wants to miss out and no one wants going to be involved. And it's also that no one's accountable often. Everyone's involved, but there's no single point of accountability. So there's no empowerment or holding people accountable around stuff. And that's kind of one extreme to highly empowered organizations that trust their people and empower them and grow them. Because what you want is motivated people that are allowed to make decisions and deal with problems. And because you invest a lot in your people, you want to grow them and retain them, and you want the culture. Because if you've got a good culture in the organization, it reflects as well your customers like dealing with you as well.
Yeah.
So, but this is why I said, people think operator technology is a silver bullet, but no, actually it's people, process, culture, organisation, the data. You've got to have it all come together. And then, like I say, if you're going to put in technology, people need to embrace it or see what's in it for them as well and how it'll help them.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important. I try to learn from people that are where I want to be, and I often quote Jocko Willink, which is, he teaches leaders to lead, and he's ex-Navy SEAL, and he's not a hoorah and force, he's more of a decentralization and trust. You would think, regimented army, do this, follow this, shoot this, like this, but he was more of when there's a shot fired and comms are broken, they need to be able to think for themselves. Yeah.
So there's a thing in the military called commander's intent. And so that's about devolving power and empowerment. So basically you need to know what the strategic outcome is that you're trying to achieve, and then what freedoms and constraints you've got to do that. So you're operating within, so it's not necessarily you've got freedom to do everything, but you'll say, it may be that you've got to go and get to this particular building, there's someone in there hostage, and rescue them. You're told, what freedoms you have to do that, what constraints, because it may be that it's surrounded in a civilian area, so it's going, you can't just bombard it with artillery and flatten the thing because there's a hospital next to it. You're not allowed to any civilian casualties, you've got to extract a person alive, you've got to do that, but you come up with a plan and what resources you need around that, and we will provide those for you. And so, a simplistic example, but again, my background is also from the military as well. So I was in the Air Force for 20 odd years and went to command staff college, some operations, but the commander's intent is absolutely vital, because you train. You know how people operate, and you practice, because then you've got a base level of skill you always fall back to, because when you're under pressure you revert back to your base level of skill. That's why the military trains so much. So in high pressure situations they've got a very high level of competence in what they are doing. But it's that other thing that the local commander is empowered to do what he needs to do, and that he understands what his commander's intent is, and he is following that. And if you translate that to business, that's effectively what's your massive transformational purpose. What are you aiming for? What are you trying to achieve? If it's, if you look at SpaceX, it's like to make life multiplanetary. So they're all about how we can get to Mars. Everyone knows that, and that their whole thing, the moon's just a stepping stone. Supporting an international space station is a stepping stone. So they know what they're going to. So it kind of translates into the kind of civilian business world as well. But when you come back to the thing is empowerment, training, under situational awareness, which is like under dashboards and performance, but it's also setting targets around this of, you're performing to a certain level. If you're weak in an area, how are you addressing that? If you're strong in an area, that's great.
Yeah, I think, from what I'm hearing from that military component, there's probably a lot of transferable things. I think in sales, we used to train people every day for an hour. For the exact reason, like there's going to be points where they struggle and forget, and they've got a system to operate and to think. What are other transferable things from your experience in the Air Force that you find are useful in business?
People skills.
People skills, yeah.
At the end of the day, it's from an early age. My first tour, I was put in charge of a kind of a flight, and I had 110 people working for me. As a 22-year-old, I was a bit daunting. The good thing is I had a wily old warrant officer took me under his wing and taught me some good skills. But it's equally going that, it's that ability to empathise, understand people, also how people tick, how you can get the best out of people, and how people operate, normally, and how they react under pressure, because everyone reacts differently. And I guess the thing is that, in selecting people, the military look for certain skill sets that it's not that someone's outstanding in all these attributes, it's that they've got potential to grow. So the big thing in the military is they're looking for people with potential and the right attitude, because they can grow. And certainly I've seen that, and it's great when you see it applied outside, and we've done the same, that we recruit on attitude and, your ability to problem solve, stuff, rather than you're highly technical, highly qualified in this, because we can train you to be highly technical and highly qualified. But if you haven't got the right attitude to start with and a willingness to learn and actually, you're fired up to do stuff, we're wasting our time. So we're going to take in that, and for ourselves, we're very lucky. We've got about 12 different nationalities. We're quite diverse. We're over, I think we're about 45% female across all levels within our organisation, in a very male-dominated kind of world as well, technical world. And I think the other thing is, certainly from the military, is that they invest a lot in training people and developing people because of the potential. And it's that thing of going that it's identifying that in people, but also growing them. And, and it's often, I've seen people when I was in that you would have thought they didn't particularly do well at school, but the environment they're in was bad. You suddenly put them into a nurturing environment that invests in them and understands them, and suddenly they just excel.
Yeah.
So
it's insane. It's like, it's interesting. I think on a fundamental level, we sort of all get that. In terms of the execution, it seems quite rare. I try to write a book just from talking and then use AI to do the punctuation and fix it. But one of the things I was trying to think of, what's the 80-20 in sales? Because I think sales is just charisma or an ability to transfer belief. And the 80-20, from what I could gather, is either belief in themselves, the product, and the ability to build trust. And I was like, well, how do you build belief in themselves? And I thought, okay, well, if you can create an organization where they can reparent the emotions that weren't resolved as a child, say, for example. So it's a nurturing environment where vulnerability is accepted. So they retrain the neural pathways to say, instead of just reacting how I normally do, it's okay to share. Giving reassurance and developing new neural pathways around that. And then through that culture, ideas are rewarded. They feel more confident in who they are. And I find what people will charge is proportionate to their self-worth. So if you can instill belief in your staff, not forcing it, it might not be that your product is the best, but you will do everything you can to make your product the best. And instead of focusing on telling them, hey, this is perfect, it's more like, what is the experience of the client and what is their problem like? And if we can focus on that problem and we give you examples of how we're actually solving that problem for them, you don't need any technical skills, because that transfer of conviction and belief will lead to people wanting to buy.
Yeah. And I think it's like, say, it's that people are put into an environment where they feel they've got worth and value, but also trust as well. Really important, and they're empowered, massive. And I guess it's that thing of go that, as an individual, but if you're part of a team as well, and it's making that by everyone working together as a team, the outputs that you can deliver or the outcomes are greater than the sum of the individuals. And it becomes really powerful then. It becomes a virtuous circle, going forward, that, because you could then get the wins and the bigger wins and the bigger wins. But equally, it's the thing of, if stuff goes wrong, it's not pointing fingers at stuff. It's going, analysing why. And that's the thing, because, people can plan to the nth degree, but I always think of planning. It's not the plan that's of value. It's the intellectual process to produce the plan. Because any plan that you have, in the military, as soon as you engage with the enemy, the plan's out the window, because they do stuff there. And it's the same with whether it's a sales plan, it's a business plan. You have an idea of what you want to do, but it's a process to get to that plan of what your assumptions were, what the risks you're prepared to take, what the investment is you need, what the customer wants or perceptions about the market. And there's a lot of assumptions in there, and you test them and you go, well, that assumption was wrong. Actually, we need to readjust that, or actually the market's changed, or whatever, or etc. So it's the process that you're not sticking rigidly with plan, that you can actually understand, okay, because everything's built with a set of assumptions or of world, or your model of the world.
Yeah.
And it's that ability to rapidly change it and adjust it and learn from it as well.
Yeah, that's the. I've never had it put so simply. The intellectual process is more important than the plan.
Yeah.
Because that makes a lot of sense. I think there was a moment where I was like, I could use Fiverr and Upwork to get someone to do video editing. But then to me, that wasn't a compounding investment. It was a micromanaging accountability. This is what I can get straight after. But there's the benefit I would get by investing into a person and their potential, the exponential growth on that, and how that would compound over time was worth the initial uncomfortability as we grow together.
Yeah.
But I think we've done an hour, and
Okay.
you imagine you're a busy man. So, what would be either your imparting point that hopefully it could have a positive impact on someone in whatever field, and then who should reach out to you and why? And I'll put your website in the description.
Yeah. No, I think it's I mean, it's really. I was trying to think of what was the first question again?
Just an imparting point.
Yeah.
And then who should buy from you, basically.
Okay. Yeah, I think that I come back to a point earlier. There's no silver bullets out there. Technology is a great enabler, but it's really got to be combined with your people, your culture, your organisation, how you fit it all together, and the processes that you do, the data you have, and so on, and that you've got a reasonable strategy around that. And yeah, I'd just say that you can make great strides forward, but it's like your people are definitely the most valuable asset, and it's that ability to invest in them and build the environment where they're going to grow, because they find opportunities for you. They'll leverage technology to do that. There's so much knowledge and information out there, and again, drive and willingness. And I've just seen people have gone above and beyond so many times, go that extra mile, and they do that when they're in a great environment and they're trusted and empowered. Where if a culture's not there, his job's worth. That's not my job. Where he's going, it's not my job, but I can make a difference by doing this. And you just see that definitely the organisations that you want to deal with that are like that to those that aren't. And just if people looking for how they actually move their businesses forward or organisations forward, and leverage that whole combination of people, technology, data, and there's a process around that, and how you actually do an integrated way of moving things forward, more than happy to help. Or even if you just want to talk about automation or operational excellence. So yeah.
Boom. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right.